Grace Millane was born on December 2nd, 1996 in Essex, England. She was born into a middle-class, emotional family. Her parents are Mr. David and Mrs. Gillian. Grace was the youngest daughter in the family. She had two older brothers, Michael and Declan. She was a vibrant, sociable, and family-oriented girl. She had a gift for art and often spent hours drawing. Although not trained in a formal school, but Grace could draw pictures that looked very soulful and beautiful. In 2018, Grace graduated from Lincoln University, majoring in advertising and marketing. Like many other young girls, Grace was passionate about traveling and discovering new lands. After graduating from college, Grace decided to spend a whole year traveling before starting her life applying for a job. Grace was a loving girl, so before traveling, she cut her hair short and donated it to the Little Princess Trust to turn it into wigs for children with cancer. At the end of October 2018, Grace picked up her backpack and went, starting her adventure. The first destination in Grace's journey was South America. She stayed there for 6 weeks. Every day she posted pictures on social media and called her family. Grace bragged that she had met a lot of great new friends. This was not unusual for Grace's family members because she was always very friendly and easy to make friends. November 19, 2018, Grace arrived in New Zealand, and 11 days later, she arrived in Auckland, a city in the north of New Zealand. Grace checked into a motel called the Base Backpackers. This is a kind of budget motel, so Grace had a shared room with some other tourists. On September 1st, Grace changed her Facebook profile picture. One man commented, "Beautiful, very radiant." It was a man Grace had just met on Tinder, an online dating site. The two hadn't talked for a while, but he seemed eager to meet Grace. Grace seemed hesitant at first, unsure for the date, but after talking for a while, he seemed like a decent person, so Grace agreed to have a drink with him. Around 6 p.m. on December 1st, 2018, Grace left the motel and headed downtown. She wore a knee-length black dress, a pair of white shoes, and she carried a small handbag. She was going out on a date with a new man online. Grace had also carefully arranged to meet him in a crowded place called Sky City. This is a large central business district with bars, restaurants, and casinos. Right on the date, Grace texted one of her best friends and bragged that she was going on a date with an ideal man. He was so sweet, elegant, and the manager of an oil company. He came here on business and was living in a hotel nearby. Around 7:20 p.m., they went out to eat at a Mexican restaurant. They left the restaurant around 8:25 p.m. As promised, the man paid for the meal. All in all, Grace felt like the two of them get along very well and looked like she having a great date. About an hour later, they arrived at a bar called the Bluestone Room. The two were drinking and seemed to have become much more intimate with each other than before. After a while, Grace left to go to the toilet. She naively didn't know that as soon as she turned to walk away, that man started rummaging through her bag. At 9:30 p.m., they left the bar, walking hand in hand down the street. The next morning was Sunday, December 2nd, and it was her 22nd birthday. Grace's family and friends at home have sent countless congratulatory messages over the phone and on social media, but Grace hasn't responded to anyone, and when people try to call her, the number was not reachable. It's extremely unusual because Grace called her family seemingly every day. Grace was an innocent, carefree girl. Every day she showed off to her family countless pictures that she took on the trip. So, when Grace didn't reply to anyone's text on her birthday, her family had a hunch that something bad had happened. But maybe her parents believed that Grace was partying with new friends, or maybe they naively didn't know the world is much more dangerous than they thought. Generally for unknown reasons, but it was not until 3 days later, on December 5, 2018, that Grace's family called the police in Auckland.
Tonight with a public appeal for missing British backpacker Grace Millane. A short time ago, police held a press conference to appeal for sightings of the 22-year-old who has not been seen since 7:15 p.m. on Saturday night.
On December 7, 2018, Grace's father, Mr. David, attended a press conference to beg everyone to help find his daughter.
I'm David Millane, Grace's dad. Thank you for coming today. As you know, Grace has been missing for several days. We last had contact with her on Saturday the 1st of December, and as a family we've been extremely concerned for her welfare. Grace is a lovely, outgoing, fun-loving, family-orientated daughter. Grace has never been out of contact for this amount of time. She's usually in daily contact with either her mother, myself, her two brothers, members of the family on social media. She arrived here on the 20th of November and has been bombarding us with numerous photographs and messages of her adventures. We're all extremely upset, and it's very difficult at this time to fully describe the range of emotions we are going through.
The first point the police came to check was the base backpackers motel. The receptionist said that she has not returned to the motel since December 1st. All her belongings were still in the room. It's been 3 days. Assuming that Grace spent the night at a new friend's house, she had to go back to the motel to get her personal belongings. Thanks to a large number of security cameras around the city, the police quickly learned who Grace had met and what she was doing that afternoon. The man who arranged to meet Grace was identified as Jesse Campson. He was living at a hotel called City Life in Auckland. When they checked Jesse's personal Facebook page, the police found a long post saying that he was extremely sorry for being arrogant, selfish, and upset people. Jesse Campson was 26 years old. He was born in Wellington. His parents divorced when he was young. After being moved from house to house for many years, Jesse was raised by his grandparents. Since childhood, Jesse has been a frequent liar. Jesse lied not out of habit, but as a disease, and he couldn't control it. Jesse lied without blinking and without shame, from the smallest things to the worst. Jesse once told relatives that he had just signed a contract as a professional player for a famous rugby team. Another time, he announced to everyone that he was being treated for cancer. This causes everyone in the family to gradually alienate and cut ties with him. Because of the disease of uncontrolled lying, Jesse could not do any long-term work, nor could he choose where to stay for long. Every once in a while, he was fired or refused to sign a lease. His last job was telephone consultant, and he was fired before he met Grace. Even though he didn't have a penny, Jesse was always well-dressed and successful. Jesse told Grace that he was a manager for a large oil and gas company, but in reality, he was paying for his house on unemployment and welfare payments. At this point, the police learned that the last person seeing Grace was Jesse, and they immediately asked him to come to the station for questioning.
Tell us about Grace.
So I was talking to Grace on Tinder.
Yeah.
We'd matched on Friday. I saw that we'd matched the next day on Saturday. And then we met at Sky City, and then we decided that we were going up to Andy's Burger Bar. Hey, I just want to ask a question. Am I being arrested for something I didn't do?
You haven't been arrested, mate.
Oh,
No.
I was like, holy shit.
Jesse admitted that he went on a date with Grace, but nothing out of the ordinary happened that night. They had a great date, and that's all. After asking to go out with Grace the next day, he hugged her goodbye. The two went their separate ways. He testified that the next morning, he tried to contact Grace, but she apparently blocked his number. But nearly 6 terabyte tapes of thousands of security cameras in the area told the police a completely different story. The more the police analyzed the data from the security cameras, the more the pieces of the dark picture emerged. Although Jesse said that they said goodbye to each other, the hotel camera showed the two working hand in hand into the City Life Hotel where Jesse stayed. Together, they exited the elevator on the floor where Jesse's room was, but Grace never re-entered that elevator. Thanks to the data from the security cameras, the police were able to trace Jesse's every move the next day. On the morning of December 2nd, 2018, Jesse entered the elevator alone. He left the hotel and went to a store, choosing to buy a suitcase. Then he went to another store to buy cleaning supplies. At noon that same day, he took a taxi to a car rental company and rented a red Toyota. Hours later, Jesse went on a date with another woman he met online. When the police interviewed the girl, she said that during the date, he kept talking about corpses and how to bury them. When she was upset, Jesse explained that because many of his friends were policemen, they often talked about this. Even so, the girl still felt unfriendly and thought she was wasting her time with the pervert, so she refused to get in his car and took a taxi home. In the afternoon of the same day, Jesse went into the city again to rent a carpet washing machine. He explained that he spilled wine on the carpet and needed cleaning. 9:30 p.m., Jesse loaded the suitcase onto the hotel trolley and loaded it into the car he rented earlier. At 7 a.m. the next day, he went to a convenience store again. This time, he bought a shovel. 2 hours later, Jesse went to a public car wash and cleaned the car before returning it to the company. When the police went to the car rental company, the staff said that the car had been rented by many other people. On December 5th, 3 days after Grace went missing, Jesse went to various locations to put something in the trash. The police were almost certain they had caught the culprit. They quickly arrived at the City Life Hotel after a warrant was issued for Jesse's arrest. When the police were talking to the front desk, Jesse was on his way back to hotel. When Jesse saw the policeman, he turned to run away. Fortunately, the police saw him and they quickly chased after him. Jesse could not run so far. The police quickly caught him and took him to the station for questioning. Jesse's story changed 180 degrees this time.
Indicated that you're willing to speak to us about the events of last Saturday. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell me what happened last Saturday.
she started talking to me about 50 Shades of Grey. We started having sex. At first it was just normal. And then she asked me if we could get into bondage, having, I guess, more violent sex. We ended up on the floor, and then she told me to hold her throat. So I went into the shower, and then all I remember is falling asleep in the shower. I need to stop. I need to go.
Jessie said that the two of them made love in a violent style, imitating the movie 50 Shades of Grey. He strangled her to induce excitement. When he was done, he left her there to take a shower. After showering, he went to bed and assumed Grace had left. In the morning, when he woke up, he realized to his horror that Grace was lying on the floor and dead. He bought a suitcase, hid Grace's body in it, and buried it in a remote mountainous area. The story of Jessie's lies, even children find it hard to believe, but Jessie still insists on denying the crime. He insisted it was just an accident when the two discovered a violent style of lovemaking. The video showed Jessie trying to put all the blame on the victim. After this interrogation, some of Jessie's ex-lovers accused him of sexual violence. Clearly, Jessie is a despicable liar. Despite Jessie's best efforts to clean up the tracks in his hotel room, forensic was still able to trace blood on the floor. Jessie led the police to the Waitakere Reservoir just after 4 p.m. that same day. They quickly found Grace's body lying in a hastily buried suitcase. Jessie has asked the New Zealand court not to reveal his identity. However, some international news agencies still released his name and image, contrary to the New Zealand court order.
The area was identified late last night as a location of interest as a result of our investigative work. I can now advise that a short time ago, we located a body which we believe to be Grace. The formal identification process will now take place. However, based on the evidence we have gathered over the past few days, we expect that this is Grace. The focus now is to piece together exactly what happened to a young girl who came to New Zealand on her OE. Obviously, this brings the search for Grace to an end. It is an unbearable time for the Millane family, and our hearts go out to them. Any father, any parent in this situation will struggle. I feel for my other daughter in her 20s. We're putting a lot of support around him. It's difficult because he's here with a brother from England and the rest of the family are back home.
After Grace went missing, her father and brother flew to New Zealand in the hope of finding their daughter safely back. However, their fragile hopes were soon dashed. Grace's murder shocked New Zealand. Anyone could feel the pain her family was going through. Thousands of people held vigil for the unfortunate girl and her loved ones. Even the Prime Minister of New Zealand publicly apologized to Grace's family on behalf of the country.
I cannot imagine the grief of her family and what they will be experiencing and feeling right now. And my thoughts and prayers are with her father, David, who is in the country, her mother, Gillian, who cannot be here, and her wider family, friends, and loved ones. And so, on behalf of New Zealand, I want to apologise to Grace's family. Your daughter should have been safe here, and she wasn't, and I'm sorry for that. I've advised the family through the police that if there is anything we can do to assist, we are here to help with that.
An autopsy revealed that Grace had died of strangulation and that her body was covered with bruises, especially in the area of her arms and chest. She was strangled for at least 5 minutes before completely dying. At about 1:30 a.m. Sunday morning, while Grace's dead body was still lying in the room, Jessie went online to search for keywords such as flesh-eating birds, Then he went through several high school movie websites and took nude pictures of Grace while she was dead. More than a month after Grace's body was found, she was finally brought home and laid to rest. In November 2019, Jesse entered the trial with an expressionless face. His defense argued that Grace's death was an unfortunate accident because Jesse was inexperienced and was in a drunken state. But in the end, the prosecutor did not believe in this argument.
Suffocating her, strangling her is probably the correct term, for a total of 5 to 10 minutes, at some point of which she lost consciousness and would have become under his hand hold, unconscious and limp and lifeless, and he had to carry on. And if that's not reckless murder in this country, ladies and gentlemen, somebody will have to explain to me what is.
On December 22, 2019, Jesse was sentenced to life in prison without parole for at least 17 years. After Jesse was arrested, 2 of his ex-girlfriends also spoke up and sued him. These women accused Jesse of taking advantage of them, stealing their money, and sexually assaulting them. Jesse was charged with 8 other counts and sentenced to 11 years in prison, in addition to the sentence he received for the murder of Grace. When Jesse learned he was convicted, he got mad at the judge.
You're so full of shit. You have no reason to convict me. You're full of
The verdict of murder today will be welcomed by every member of the Millane family and friends of Grace. It will not reduce the pain, the suffering that we've had to endure for over the past year. Grace was taken away from us in the most brutal fashion a year ago, and our lives have been, and family have been ripped apart. This will be with us for the rest of our lives. We would like to thank several people. Auckland Police Force, been professional, diligent and thorough all through this investigation. Last but not least, we would love to thank the people of New Zealand. They've opened their hearts to Grace and her family. I cannot express our gratitude enough for all the offers and gifts of kindness that we've received over the last year.
After Grace's death, her family donated money to the White Ribbon Organization, one of the international campaigns to call for an end to violence against women. They also launched a movement to donate bags with necessary items in them to help women who are trying to escape domestic violence.